It is so good to to be upright and be back with my church family. I want to thank you so much, and I want to thank Paul and James. I was able to watch on YouTube, so I got to enjoy their sermon, their message as well. And I can't tell you how much of an honor and a blessing it is to know that when I can't be here with you, that things go just as smoothly. And I want to thank you for that. Thank you for your prayers. I missed you guys, and man, it's good to be back. That's all I got to say. Also, too, I want to quickly announce our community outreach team. If you are looking for something to do that's not going to take up a whole lot of time but is going to make a big difference, we have a great team of people here that will do things out in the community once a month, once every few months. It doesn't take a lot of time from your schedule, but it will make a huge difference in the lives of other people. So if you would like to sign up for that, our leaders are Cindy, the one that's back at the desk, and Caleb, okay, Cindy, and Caleb, and then Lydia as well, too. And there will be a sign-up sheet at the very back. If you want to sign up, put down your name and your phone number, and what they'll do is they will let you know when they're getting ready to do the next project and what that all will entail. The other quick announcement, which I'm really excited about, is next Sunday, which is Easter. On Easter service night, we will have communion, but we also will have baptism. If you haven't gotten baptized before, I can't think of a more special night to do that. Maybe you were baptized as a child and didn't really realize what all that entailed, and maybe you want to recommit. If so, that night would be a great night for you to do that, and the sign-up sheet is at the back. There you go, exactly. What he said, I ditto that one. I am so grateful for this book right here. And let me tell you why. I'm grateful because it's filled with real people, with real situations and real problems. See, our history books, some can argue that's history according to this person's point of view. But when you look at the Bible is just the truth. It didn't try to flower anything up. It didn't try to leave out any of the messy parts. When we read our history books, especially when kings were in charge, kings wanted everything to be shown in good light on them. Don't put that part in there. Put how I was a hero here. Don't put how I was crying in the corner. Put how I rose to the occasion and, I slaughtered the enemy. That's what we're going to have. And so even when we read our history books, come to find out a lot of those history books, it's not true facts. It's more kind of written like a fiction, if you will. But in the Bible, you've got the real story. I can only imagine when it was time for Peter's story to be written, he probably would have said, hey, you know that part where Jesus called me the devil? Let's just skip over that, because, that might cause confusion, because later he's like, I'm going to build my church on this rock. Let's don't confuse the people. There's a lot of people in the story. Rahab, she might have said, can we just kind of skip over my side job? Let's get to the part where I saved my family. Let's talk about that one. That's the one that I want to hear about. But instead, God in his wisdom, he left it all in. To me, that gives me hope. See, because when I look at my story, and if my story was to be written, there's some cringy parts in there that I would be like, let's just kind of rewrite that one, or let's just leave that one out. But God says, no, that's your story. That's who you are, and that will make you become who you're going to be. One of the people that I want to read about today is Moses. And I would imagine Moses, if he was going to sit down and decide what was going to go in the story and what was going to be left out, there's quite a bit of his story that he probably would have liked to just have left out. Let's talk about how I delivered the people. Let's talk about the snake part. That was kind of cool. Let's talk about, me and my magic staff and hitting the water. That's cool. Let's do that. But let's don't leave out my speech impediment. Let's leave out where I really struggled with anger. In fact, I was a fugitive. Let's leave that part out. But God says, no, that's the story. And I'm so grateful that they left it in because, see, when I read his story thousands of years later, I'm like, oh, he had issues too. I can relate. He had trouble speaking in front of people. He struggled with anger. He struggled with a little bit of self-esteem. Let's see what happens in his story. And so I love the fact that we can use their stories to help us get through maybe a part in our life. So often the Bible, we read it and we're detached from it. Maybe it's a boring history book. Maybe it's languages that we don't understand, people we can't relate to. But in the Bible, it says that the word killeth, but the Spirit gives life. So in other words, you could die of boredom reading the Bible if you take it just like black and white. But if you look for God in the story, and if you look for yourself in the story, all of a sudden, these people come to life. We've seen so often the movies of Moses and different books. And strangely enough, the one that hit home the most to me was an animated one called The Prince of Egypt. I don't know if you've seen that one, but I was able to relate on a different level. Maybe that says where I am mentally because the cartoon is the one that spoke to me. I don't know, but just being real. But it was the part where for so often I kind of disassociated myself with him as a real person. I read his story, I read his facts, but I didn't stop and think about he was a real person with feelings, a personality, with insecurities, with failures, with hopes, with dreams, with confusion. And the part in the movie that struck my heart so much is the fact that he was raised among these Egyptians. It was his second family, if you will. He learned their ways, their education, their culture, their customs, the way of dressing, and he developed relationships with them. That was his second family. He got into trouble with them. He laughed with them. He pulled pranks with them. He went through situations with them. He grew up with them. And then he had to come back to that same town with still some of those same people living there that he had fond memories of. And he had to listen as the angel of death came through the village. And he had to hear the cries. And knowing that behind those cries were people taking their last breath. See, he was torn. Those were his people too. And it made him so real. And I think that maybe that was a turning point with me reading my Bible as I started to connect to them as somebody that I could relate to. Maybe their clothes were different. Maybe they didn't have the conveniences that I had, but the hurt was the same. The confusion was the same. The fear was the same. And so I started reading the stories, seeing if I could relate. I brought life to these characters in my mind. And then I looked for myself in the story. And I'm going to do the same thing today in today's story with Moses. And I want to read a few scriptures first so that you kind of know the background and where we're going with this story. The second book of Moses is called Exodus, and what Exodus means is to exit. So the whole story is talking about this group of people that was enslaved, and they cried out, and it was the time that God heard their voice, and he said, I'm going to send you a deliverer. And so this whole book is about them exiting Egypt. But in chapter 2, we find that Moses was born. And Moses was born at a time when he shouldn't have survived. But because of a love of a mama, she hid him away. He became adopted into the Pharaoh's family. And while he was raised as an Egyptian, he knew that he was also a Hebrew. And as he grew up, he would see injustices done. And he, jumping the gun like a lot of us, think that we're going to go in there and we're going to right the wrong. Well, in chapter 2, we find Moses trying to right the wrong, and what he ended up doing was trying to break up a situation where the taskmaster was beating one of his fellow Hebrew men. And he got a little carried away. That hit felt really good. It connected. And he just couldn't stop himself, because then all of a sudden this anger rose up on the inside of him, and he was going to right all the wrongs. And for some reason, this guy's face represented everything wrong that was going on. And he just didn't stop until it was too late. He looked around thinking, nobody's seen me, hopefully, and let's just hide the guy and let's just go on. The next day he's out there and he sees 2 of the Hebrew guys, and they're fighting one another, and he decides to be the mighty teacher, the one that's going to right all the wrongs, and he goes to correct and scold them. He wasn't expecting the reply. Rather than saying, oh yes, we're sorry, oh wise one, you are so right. We need to stick together because that's what brothers do. They simply turned and said, what? You going to kill us like you killed the other guy? Oh, snap. Oh, yes. You mean you saw that, huh? I didn't think anybody was watching. You saw that. And he backs up, and he keeps backing up, and he takes off and he hides. Because now the Pharaoh, he hears, is after him. Man, he took it into his own hands. He didn't do it the right way. So he runs and he hides. And he's tired and he's down by a well. And God's hand of grace reaches down into his story. And there's a lady, and she's nice. She offers Moses some water. They end up talking. Moses protects her. She takes him home to her daddy. He gets a job. He now belongs to a community. He now has a family. Life is good. He's comfortable, right? Because isn't that the goal of life? Be comfortable? That's what he thinks. I'm comfortable. I've been doing this now for 40 years. It's my trade. Left Egypt behind. I thought I had a call on my life for this, but everything's just gone fine. So we find ourselves in chapter 3, and this is the season where he's comfortable. He's not looking for anything more. He's not looking to right the wrongs. He tried. He messed up. God's blessed him. He's about really to retire. He's got a good amount of sheep, happy family, happy wife. Everybody knows him. There's old Mo. Mo's a good guy. Can't remember a time that Mo hasn't been here. It says new family. And he's comfortable. We have to be very careful in our life, because sometimes that seems to be our goal. Comfortable, right? I finally got some money in the bank. I don't have to worry so much. Things are going well in the relationship. Got the kids raised. They're doing well. That's our human goals. Let's be comfortable. But Jesus didn't die on a cross so that we could be comfortable. God didn't give us a calling so that we could be comfortable. See, comfort was not part of his plan for you and I. Greater things is his plan for you and I. He doesn't want you to get to where you are emotionally ready to retire. Oh, I've gone to church so much. I've sung, I've done this, I've done that. Yeah, I've done my due. There's no spiritual retirement in God's kingdom. See, the problem is, what's really bad is people get a certain age and they get comfortable. See, they've already come down and prayed so many times for other people. They've gone to so many different Bible studies already. They've done their positions. They've done a lot. And now it's time, I'm just going to coast. We'll show up. We'll come in and we'll sing a few songs. I might open my Bible during the week. I'll remember to say my prayers. And while all of that is good, God's called you to much more. See, we need those of the older generation. We need their wisdom. We need their insight. We need their input. We need the grandma who's logged 1,000 hours in prayer. We need her to touch our shoulder as we pray. See, she's prayed a lot. God knows her voice. It's not time for her to get tired and sit back and say, well, somebody else is going to step up now. And this is what's happened with Moses. Moses is now comfortable. But let's see what God does in Moses' comfortable season when he should be thinking about retiring. God says, oh no, don't sit down. It's time to gear up. It says that in chapter 3 and verse 1, that now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. And he led the flock to the back of the desert and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire from the midst of a bush. So he looked, and behold, the bush was burning with fire, but the bush was not consumed. Then Moses, speaking to himself, said, I will now turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush does not burn. So when the Lord saw that he turned aside to look, God called to him from the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, here I am. Then he said, do not draw near this place. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place where you stand is holy ground. Moreover, he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God. There's two hindrances in our lives to becoming all that God's called us to be and to get more. I don't know about you. I'm going to be real. I want more. Because I've gotten kind of complacent of not digging in as much as maybe I should. Because see, I want more in my life. And it's up to me to make sure that that happens. A lot of times we wait on God for this mystical cloud to fall, this anointing to come and just sweep us off of our feet, this great sign, the shaking of the ground. We're waiting on God. And I would dare say God's waiting on us. God's waiting on us to shake off what is normal and say, you know what? I want more and I'm going to dig in more. Oh, I can be comfortable and I can just scoot by. And I can be a good Christian, but it's all just right here. I don't want that. And I'll tell you why I don't want that. Because the world needs more. And sad to say, so many of the Christians do just enough. They do just enough. They pray just enough to keep the devil off their back. They go to church just enough to make their conscience feel better. They sing just enough songs to keep their vocal cords stretched. They read just enough of the Bible to say, oh, I read it. And that's their comfort zone. And that's okay if that's all you want in life. I don't want to be comfortable any longer. I want to not only read about the miracles in the Bible, I want to see the miracles in the Bible. Not only do I want to see the miracles in the Bible, I want to call down the miracles in the Bible. And it's up to me. You might say, oh, it's up to God. No, it's up to me. God's willing and he's able. God says, you draw closer to me, I'm going to draw closer to you. And so in this situation, Moses thinks that he's finished. But now something has got his attention. See, the biggest obstacles to our destiny of having more is, number one, our failures. Because we will run and hide. That's what Moses did. You mess up, what do? I can't go to church, I'm dirty. You mess up, I can't be around his presence, I'm dirty. I need to go and hide. I'm more comfortable over here. God says, your failures is what I'm going to use to elevate you. Your failures is part of your story. Your failures is part of your success. Your failures is part of your victory. And the other thing that keeps us from receiving all that he wants us to have, man, is we get comfortable. We get comfortable with life, with stuff. We no longer have the hunger. Isn't it sad that so often in our life we have to have a tragedy before we really dig back into church? Before we really start listening to those Christian songs? Before we really get down on our knees and pray and think, I'm going to be at church every single time. I'm going to be down at this altar every single time that the doors are open. And then what happens? God sees us through it, and then we get comfortable. Then it's just comfort. God didn't die. God didn't send his son to die on a cross so that we would be comfortable. He said, when you were born, I put you here for a purpose, for a reason. You have a mission. I don't want to get to the end of my life and say, God, I'm so sorry. I was just more concerned about being comfortable. I don't want to see all of the lives that could have been changed had I shared my story. Had I dug in just a little bit deeper. Had I actually turned the TV off and got on my knees and prayed when that was uncomfortable. I don't want to see what could have happened. But I was too comfortable. I was too familiar. If I'm going to be here, and apparently we're still here because we haven't fulfilled our purpose, then I'm going to make a difference. I'm going to make a difference in the atmosphere. I'm going to make a difference in the spiritual world. When I walk in, I want demons to walk out. When I walk in, I want chains to fall off people that have been bound and tortured by him. Because, see, he's really ticked me off. Because he's really messed up this world. It wasn't his to mess up, but he's messed it up. And we just, myself included, can get comfortable of going, oh, isn't that sad? I've even said, I'm so glad that my parents aren't here to have to see what this world has come to. I need to change that. I need to say, it's not what it used to be, but it's going to be better than what it was going to be because we're going to make a difference. I'm tired of us worrying about offending people when they don't care if they offend us. They can talk about everything that they want to talk about and what we should accept and what should be normal. And the minute that we say, that's not how I believe, then all of a sudden it's a hate crime and a hate speech. Why? Because we've gotten comfortable of not standing up for what we believe. I'm not saying to put people down, but I'm saying to stand up for the God that created this world. I'm saying stand up for love and for what is right. And when something is wrong, you've got to tell your children, that's wrong. That's not the way that things are supposed to be. This isn't the way that we're supposed to live. Just because somebody decides that they want to identify as a unicorn doesn't mean that I have to call them a unicorn. I have a right to say, God did not make that person a unicorn. We get too comfortable. And God says it's time for people to stand up and stand up for what is right. See, Moses, it was time for him to stand up for these people that couldn't stand up for themselves. So it says, so if you're in a time of hiding and running because your life's been marked by guilt and failures and you've messed up and you feel like you've missed the mark and you feel like giving up on your destiny, now is not the time to give up on God. God's not finished with you yet. The reason he's not finished with you yet is you're still breathing. So I know that you still got some stuff to do. You still have purpose. He's not calling you to just be enough. Don't settle. There's so much more. If you've been feeling complacent in your life, why? Because you started to settle and accept. God says, I want you to rise up because we got work to do. And I need you. Is that so amazing to know that God needs you? It matters if you don't do what you were called to do. Do you know that? That you are part of a puzzle and that puzzle's not going to fit together. Is there anything more frustrating to almost get that puzzle together and you're missing one piece? You don't even want anybody to see the picture, do you? Or if you do, you put your hand over it and go, okay, well, this is the picture. And if that one piece was there, it'd look mighty fine. I might even glue it together and stick it up on the wall. But see, that one piece, it's missing, and that's all I see. I don't see even all the beauty around it. All I see is, well, yep, you missed a piece there, didn't you? You are a piece to the puzzle. You matter. He called you to make a difference in this world. Your time isn't finished. I don't care what the calendar says. I don't care how many birthday candles you've blown out. He's not finished with you yet. In fact, he's just gearing up. Don't get ready to spiritually get comfortable and retire. God's pulling you out of retirement. He's saying, I need you. See, Moses was comfortable. He thinks maybe I have arrived because my goal, I finally have met it. But God says, there's so much more. So let's see in our closing moments what we can learn from Moses in these few verses. Moses is on the mountain just like any other day. Bush he's seen just on like any other day. But I don't know if there was a different charge in the air. I don't know if the animals felt like there was something going on. But when he woke up that morning and put his dirty sandals on and grabbed his staff and got ready to head to the mountain like he had done so many other times, this was familiar. He could do it with his eyes closed. This day was going to be life-changing. God can take what is your ordinary, always run-of-the-mill day. But if you're looking, you'll see God's hand at work. See, Moses noticed something out of the corner of his eye. He noticed a bush. that normally wasn't on fire, and this bush was on fire, but he didn't smell any smoke. There's something different about this. Now Moses could have just ran and went, oh, I'm out of here. I don't know what that is. There's something going on there. Because he had his to-do list. He had things that he had to get accomplished. And he could have went, oh, I'll check on that later. But see, when God calls, he calls at the right time, and there's a time and a season. And it was Moses' time. Moses, I learned from Moses here that it doesn't matter what your to-do list is, how important you think certain things are. When God shows up, it should grab your attention. Something's different. And it says not only did it grab his attention, but then he said to himself, I like that the Bible includes that, let me go see what's going on here. I get that. It says that as he turns, that's when God speaks. When Moses turned away from the distractions, turned his attention to God, then God spoke. You notice the bush didn't call out Moses, 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 trying to get his attention, and Moses finally turns. He took a step of faith. I'm going to draw closer to this. I want to see what this is, because, man, am I going to have a story tonight. It's not going to be the same old, well, how were the sheep? The sheep were fine. Was it hot? Yeah, we're in the desert. It was hot. Did your feet get dirty? Yeah, I was walking with my sandals. My feet got dirty. No, I got a story. I got a story to tell now. And I need to see what's going on here. What's really funny to me is that when the bush talks, Moses answers the bush. The bush calls his name. That's pretty cool. But this bush knew his name. And it says that Moses didn't take off running. Now, I might have went to holler to get a witness. Are you seeing this too? I don't know. Maybe the sun's too hot. I don't know. But now this bush is talking to me. And then the bush says something else. Here's what can be one of our greatest hindrances to experiencing more. He tells him to take his shoes off. He tells him to take his shoes off, and he tells him why to take his shoes off. I'm sure they stunk. But he says, take your shoes off. Because where you're at, this isn't just the common mountain that you're used to. This isn't just a regular bush. See, this ground that you're standing on, it's holy. The one that spoke the universe into existence is in your presence. The one that can right all of the wrongs, the one that can snatch the breath from your lungs, the one that can stop the beat of your heart, the one that can call down fire from heaven to consume your enemies, the one that can part the mighty sea, the one that can make a way where there is no way. You're standing right here in the presence. The one that can answer every request. The one that can heal the broken heart. The one that can make the blind see. The one that can make the lame walk again. You're standing in my presence. I don't know how Moses was able to stand to his feet, except for the fact that he was probably in so much shock and awe. Why did he want the sandals off? Because have you not been in the house and heard your mama say, if you've been playing in the mud, take your shoes off. Take your shoes off. Don't drag that stuff in here. Or my mama, when she would be washing the kitchen floor and I would be coming around, she would be like, don't get on that. Don't get on that. I've just washed it. See, God didn't want the commonplace in his presence. He didn't want the junk of the past into his presence because he was getting ready to do something great and mighty. And he says, don't you carry your failures in here. I'm washing those away. I have something better for you. You let go of your past. I want you to take off your shoes because, see, your shoes is separating your feet from the ground. There's something there that's separating. Take your shoes off. Problem with us is we can get so familiar that it's just time to go to church. Oh, haven't read my Bible yet. Guess I should say a quick prayer. Haven't really prayed. And then we wonder, why do we get unsatisfied inside? Why do we feel a little dry? Why do we get where nothing is as exciting as it used to be? Man, when I first became a Christian, I can remember, couldn't wait to come to church, get to go to church. Why? Because that, you say, well, God's everywhere. Yes, he is everywhere. But also he says, where two or more are gathered in my name, there you're going to find me in the midst. You are getting to come into the presence of the creator of the universe, the one that knows all, the one that formed you from nothing so that he could make you into something, the one who says, you come to me with your request, the ones that can heal the brokenhearted, the one that can set the captive free. You get to come into his presence. Do you know what an honor that is? It shouldn't be well, am I going to go to church? It should be, I'm going to get to meet the creator of the universe. I'm going to get to meet the one who opened my eyes to see. I'm going to get to meet the one that told me that he loves me. I'm going to get to meet the one that gave me the greatest gifts in my life. I'm going to get to meet him one-on-one. In fact, not even just one-on-one. He says, I want you to scoot in and I want you to talk with me. And I'm going to sit beside you. I'm going to go before you this week. I want to make sure that the enemy doesn't break your heart this week. And if things do come in your life that you have to go through and grow through, then I tell you what, I'm going to be right there with you. And I'm going to work things out. I want you to trust me because I'm the one that loves you the most. The person that you love that you're sitting next to, you only have that person because of him. The joy that you've ever experienced in your life, you only have it because of him. See, he says, take your shoes off. I'm not just talking about physically, I'm talking about spiritually. We should be in a reverence with our thoughts. I'm getting to meet the one that holds it all in his hands. I'm on a first name basis with him. The things that break my heart breaks his heart. And I get to tell him about it. See, I've apologized to him because I've gotten so familiar. I do call him my best friend. He is my best friend. But I want to make sure that I always reverence him for who he is. See, I was really close to my parents, and I could call them my friends, but I didn't talk back to them. And I didn't tell them everything that I thought they were doing wrong. I reverenced and I honored who they were. And I've apologized to him because I've gotten a little familiar a time or two when I've sat down and told him how I think that things should be done. I'm grateful to say that I'm still alive and breathing. He didn't take me out. He could have, and he probably should have. But he's so loving and kind, he realized I was going through a teenage stage of my life, and he helped paddle me and grow me through this. But I never want to take just and let it be commonplace. How can we forget the one who, when we couldn't sleep at night because of a guilty conscience and insecurity and failures, then received the gift of somebody telling us about this God that not only loved us but accepted us, and that he would wash away that sin? Can you imagine having to live the rest of your life with every sin that you ever committed in your entire life, and every weight and every consequence of that, and never getting it wiped away, never getting it forgiven? What a gift his forgiveness is. What a peace of mind. And then we act like it's just commonplace. Oh, it's church again. Shame on us. And then get upset because we don't have more. We don't feel more of his spirit. We aren't happier. Why aren't we happier? Because it's become common ground. See, we as parents, one of the most important things that we can do is take our children to church. The Bible doesn't suggest it, it commands it. When they are young, train them up so when they're old, they won't depart from it. We say that we love our kids more than anything, and I truly believe that. But we're missing a big piece. If you had the chance to put protective gear on your child and you were going to send them out in one of the roughest games ever, if you had a chance to get them a helmet to protect their head, to put shoulder pads on them to protect them should they fall down, to train them, to give them the things that they need to be better prepared for the game, and you didn't do it, they would say, man, they're just setting that child up for failure. Did you see them? All the other teammates, they got a helmet on. This one, he has a bandana around his head. All the other ones, they got shoes on their feet with cleats so they can dig into the ground, so they can hold their ground. That one, he's got an old, dirty pair of socks on. What a horrible parent. Do they not know what that child is going to come up against? Did they not read the handbook? Yet they send their child out there in this game of life where the enemy is doing nothing but waiting to take them down with failures, with heartaches, with addictions. And they send them out there with not a weapon, dirty socks on their feet, and not a thing to protect them. Oh, but they're such a good parent. Really? You take care of their physical needs. What about their spiritual needs? Because see, when that child has gone down the road of addictions, or that child makes bad choices after bad choices, it breaks your heart. And then you cry, and then you pray. And you're like, God, protect my child, help my child. My child is hurting. My child's making these horrible decisions. My child is running with the wrong people. My child is believing the wrong things. God, protect my child. And God says, did you give them any protection? Did you raise them up in a church where they learned about a God that would protect them and love them? That a God that wanted blessings for their life? Did you bring them up in a church that said that they were valuable and they were loved? They weren't failures like other people called them. That they had a reason for being here on earth. That they had a purpose. Did you bring up in a church where when their hearts were broken, people would kneel down at the altar and pray with them and tell them it's going to be okay. You can do this. Did you bring them up in a church where they could listen to other people that were older than them, tell them how to make it through life? Or did you just let them decide? See, the rules at my house, our household was, as long as you're living here, you're going to church. And when you're at a certain age, then you can decide for yourself. Because, see, I knew I had to give them a foundation to stand on. I had to let them know there was a God. Did they always want to go? No. I never always wanted to go. But I'm so grateful that it wasn't a choice. Because, see, if I love my child, I can't just love the material side of them. I can't just love that physical side. God's going to hold me even more accountable for that spiritual side. And if they see the parents excited about going to church, guess what? They're going to be excited about going to church. But if it's are we going to go to church today? I don't know. Got something? I don't know. Man, my toe right here on this side right here, it kind of hurts just a little bit. I'm thinking I need to maybe just stay home. And then they look for every excuse. And maybe that was the one service that was going to touch your child's heart, that was going to open up the door, and they were going to invite him to be their Savior. And then you were going to set them on a road to spiritual success, having the tools to fight with. It shouldn't be up to a choice when your kids are little of do we go to church or do we not? Do you let them decide, hey, do you want cake for the next week to eat? Or would you like something with some vitamins in it? Why don't you do that? Well, because it's not going to be good for them. They might get sick. Exactly. We've become so familiar because church is so acceptable. Oh, we can go to this church and we can go to that church, or we can go to no church. It really doesn't matter. You're meeting the creator of the universe. You're meeting the one that you are getting to enjoy life because he says, yes, let their heart beat another time. See, Moses had gotten familiar and he says, this isn't just a regular conversation. Take your shoes off. You're on holy ground. So I'm giving you what will help you in your spiritual walk if you feel a little dry. Maybe it's you've gotten too comfortable with him. Maybe he's become too familiar. Maybe he's been like the one that you can take or leave, and he'll still be there whenever you decide to come around. And he will be there. And you can have that life. You really can. And I'm not even going to be upset with you if you have that life because it's your choice. But I want you to know that I want more. I want more. And if it takes me being a little uncomfortable and digging in just a little bit more, then you know what? You're worth it. My children are worth it. Because, see, I want to be able to be in a position that when I bow my knees to pray, the heaven stops. I want to be in a position that when I kneel down to pray, that I have angels stand at attention and say, what is it that you need? The reason is not for me. It's for you. It's for my kids. It's for this world that we live in. I can take and I can complain, and that won't change anything. Or I can pray, and that will change everything. So I'm not looking for my comfortable place in life. I'm not looking to wind down. I'm looking to gear up. And I want God to always remind me if I have forgotten and gotten comfortable in my shoes, if I've gotten familiar with the doors being open. Because, see, there was a time when those doors weren't open. And I didn't know how long that was going to last. In fact, I had a client that said, you know what? I might have to start reading the Bible for myself now. And I'm like, that's probably a good idea, so that when you come back to church, that you'll be even stronger. See, we want churches to do certain things, and we want God's power to fall, and we want all this to experience it. But I'm going to ask you, what are you doing about that? It's easy to sit in the back and just watch. Oh, I wish the power would fall. I wish this would happen. Maybe God's waiting on you. In our churches, if there's a deficit, maybe God's waiting on us to start praying to change it. So often people will say, well, I just don't feel God. It's because God's waiting on you. Because he's as close as a heartbeat. So I'm excited to go on this journey with you. I'm excited to see where God is going to take you. So this morning in closing, as I get ready to sing the last song, don't just let it be a song. Don't just let it be, well, as soon as this is done, we're going to go grab something to eat. It's really not even 11:30 yet. I promise I'll have you out before the restaurants even get busy. But you have an opportunity to praise the one that can change everything. You have an opportunity to pray to the one that's going to send you your spouse, your partner, the one that's going to heal your mama, the one that's going to cause the blind to see, the one that's going to set people free. You have an opportunity to come and be in his presence. You have an opportunity to come and be in his presence and let him wash over all the gunk from yesterday, to wash away the addiction, the temptation, the sins. Don't waste it. Don't be so familiar that you go out of church the same way that you came in. And if you don't need it, there's people around the world struggling for their last breath. There's people around the world having to dig mass graves. There's people around the world not knowing if they'll get anything to eat today or tomorrow. There's people around the world that don't know if they're going to survive the next breath. While we can, while we're not in that position, let's say, God, I'll pray. I'll stand in. I'll raise my hand for that person that can't raise their hand. I'll pray for the little babies that don't know where to go. I'll pray for the mama that doesn't know how to keep them safe. I'll pray for the daddy that's running for his life. I'll pray for the grandma who has no one to come and visit her. Oh, we're blessed. We're so blessed. So let's, like these moments, count. Spiritually, take your shoes off because you're on holy ground. I'm going to have you close, but before I do that, we are a visual people. We like to see results. And I think that hurts us sometimes in our spiritual walk because we have to take things on faith. But I want you to know that each time that you pray, see, we live in a world that has spirits with a body wrapped around it. It's not the other way around. It's not this body and then we just put the spirit inside of it. We live in a spiritual, physical world. And everything that happens in this world has a spiritual root or cause for it. And then we see the consequences physically. While I was over there praying, God was speaking to my heart. And he was saying, someday, each of my children will get to see what their prayers did. Because see, we're not across the world. We pray across the world, but we're not across the world. And we don't know what our prayers did to change things over there. So sometimes we get a little discouraged thinking, well, we prayed, did anything change? God says, one day, I'm going to roll back the curtain. And one day you're going to see what your prayers did. He's telling me this because he doesn't want you to get weary and think that your prayers don't matter. See, you don't even have to feel when you're praying. The power's in the word. And Jesus says, then you attach my name to it. And then it's going to change. You don't know the baby's life that was saved, that the mama was getting ready to lose the baby, and just all of a sudden a miracle happened. You don't know that your prayers of human trafficking saved one little girl from going down the wrong alley, talking to the wrong person. She may have been on that way and she doesn't even know why she turned and changed, but God does, because somebody prayed and he sent the angel, and he told the angel, he says, you turn him and keep him safe. You don't know that you are the reason that the dad made it out alive when he should have died in that car accident. See, your prayers are life-changing. Your prayers are a powerhouse. That's why the enemy doesn't want you to pray. That's why prayer seems boring, because he knows that it's what was going to change the world. You don't know that your prayer is the one that kept your friend from driving drunk and letting somebody else take the keys away. And you get to hang out with that best friend next weekend because you prayed and you didn't even put the 2 and 2 together, because the enemy doesn't want you to think that it's any big deal to pray. See, prayer is one of the greatest privileges that we have. So James is going to come and he's going to close us in prayer. And that prayer is going to not stay just in these walls. That prayer is going to go outside of these walls. And it's going to go across the universe. And it's going to go into homes and broken hearts and jail cells and hospital beds. And you get to be part of that success story. And one day, God will say, come here. I want to show you what your prayers did.